need to add to the policy, they can come up with it. And we, if it is feasible, we can incorporate it in them. Also, we're going to look at the performance management. In the last policy, we have an appraisal system. But in this one, we intend to do away. In fact, we have already started, but it is not spelled out properly in the policy. And I guess Mr. Fatajo will be dilating more on that. So this performance management will try to design service level agreement for every staff, and the training needs of the sector will be based on the service level agreement. What are the felt needs of an individual and so on. Also, we will be looking at how we are going to train our teachers, because you'll find out that in the last policy, or in this current policy that we are trying to review, we used to train our teachers, or we are training our teachers at the Gambia College and also at the University of the Gambia. So we will continue to train our teachers in those two institutions, which that is the University of the Gambia and MDI and Gambia College, GTTI, because they are all under the umbrella of the university. And also in the area of appointment of unqualified teachers, we'll continue to leave it with the regions. They will recruit at their own level and then forward it to HR for appointment. Right. We have also maybe the appointment of foreign teachers, the appointment of contract teachers, etc. Maybe I'll dilate more on that if you come back to me.
All right,
Thank you, Jamal.
All right, okay. Thank you so very much, Mrs. Jallo. That's the Director of Human Resources at the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. Viewers, we also want to send you a word of apology for us not being able to open the line as usual. For the past couple of programs, we were unable to do that. Our apologies for that, but our technicians are working very hard to restore that system back so that you can have the opportunity as usual to ask questions, to add, like Mrs. Jallo said, this, the purpose of the ministry coming on stage here to tell you what are the contents of the policies, to make it so much comprehensive that you can also have a say in the kind of what kind of content that the policy needs to have. So that's why they're doing this. So, but our apology definitely goes out there for us not being able to open up the line. So, but we are hoping to do that one in our subsequent programs. So now we're going to Mr. Fatajo. Mr. Fatajo, you are the PEO performance management, and you're going to be talking to us about the performance management system. What is the policy statement about that?
I mean, thank you, Jamal. Before going into the policy statement, I think it's necessary to state why we go in for performance management system. I mean, when you look at the dynamics of population growth on education management, you can see that our population is growing to an extent that we need an appropriate management system to be able to manage the education sector as a whole. And when we scouted around, we found that performance management being the most appropriate one. It is found that the control and compliance methods that the public sectors would apply globally are no more appropriate to the dynamics and expansion taking place in the provision of education in the country. That's why we move in for performance management system. It's about helping managers to be able to manage effectively and efficiently, and professionally also. Those are the key things that we look at. But basically what we are looking at is the statement force would say in the recently developed performance management would be further strengthened in the directorates and the units, and will be introduced in the school system during the policy periods to enhance performance across the system. But that is what the policy is aiming at. But the performance management system looks at three main things. Basically, we set objectives, we manage performance towards those objectives, and being able to measure performance. These are the things that we will be doing in the performance management system. But basically, it is responding to the dynamics of population growth.
Right, okay. Thank you so very much, Mr. Fatajo. Mr. Andrew Gomez, you are also a PEO, that's the Principal Education Officer at the Ministry, and then he's at the sector of the monitoring and evaluation. And this aspect is also included in the policy. So what aspect of the policy is dealing with this kind, with monitoring and evaluation? What does the policy say about that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Jamal, and good evening, viewers. In view of the need to measure tangible achievements in relation to either short, medium, or long-term outcomes of the education policy and programs, that will be shared with the stakeholders. Now, the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education decided to create monitoring and evaluation outfits that will be looking at both the upstream and downstream levels of the monitoring programs in the education sector. And in addition, a monitoring and evaluation unit has been set up to serve as a clearinghouse with the responsibility of reports on national outcomes of projects and programs that are based on the activities of the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. And thus, to that extent, a monitoring and evaluation framework has been developed that will be used to monitor and evaluate the system as appropriate. But in view of that, the policy aims to look at three main statements. And one of the statements is, with the use of the framework that I talked about, now the ministry will not only continue to monitor, to continue monitoring on a regular basis, but also to evaluate the extent to which policy objectives are being attained. That is, the objectives of the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education are very well pronounced in the education policy. Therefore, the achievement of those objectives would be based on the reports that are coming within the system, because there will be reports will be coming into the monitoring and evaluation system, and there will be a feedback also given to all the units and directorates of the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. That is what we will base on to show that these are the extent to which the policy objectives are being achieved.
Okay.
Now, the second statement is, in order to ensure that education sector directorates and units take informed decisions, efforts will be intensified to obtain timely and accurate information using both feedback and feed-forwarding mechanisms, with information sharing as the major hub of the M&E process. Now, we're saying information sharing as the major hub of the M&E process because the M&E unit, the M&E, the monitoring and evaluation system, is so central in terms of receiving information in the form of reports and giving feedback as soon as possible to all the stakeholders within the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. And third, is given the current age of the monitoring and evaluation system and units, coupled with the overwhelming benefits that can accrue from it, the institutional and management capacity of the monitoring and evaluation units will continue to be strengthened throughout the policy period. Because the monitoring and evaluation unit of the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education is actually under 2 years. And therefore, you can see that there is a need to continue to build the capacity of both the management and the institutional setup of the monitoring and evaluation unit, so that what is desired to come out from the unit in order to inform both decision making in the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education and recommendations to improve on whatever activities that the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education is undertaking in both its projects and programs would be enhanced. So far these are the three statements.
All right, okay. Thank you so very much. I think after the, telling us about the policy statements, you must have also got in place strategies that you would want to implement towards achieving those statements as they are indicated in the policy. So I want to find out from you, Mr. Cham, what are some of these strategies that that you have in place in that area towards achieving the policy statement of the education management information system and then ICT and knowledge management?
Thank you, Mr. Jamal. I started with pronouncing the policy statements on these three areas that I'm looking for. Now I will be moving towards strategies. We have some few strategies in place in these three sub-teams. First of all, I will start with the education management information system. the education